It's very discouraging, but then also like extremely familiar. I feel like it's all kind of similar stuff that like we've been seeing for a very long time. Like he just seems so similar to so many of like the men and the fathers of like guys that I know. So as much as it's very like upsetting, I don't know, I haven't like cried about it. Like a lot of people have been like crying about it, and it hasn't. I think I'm a bit desensitized. I don't know. I'm inclined to believe Dr. Ford. I find it really interesting getting into the brains of like the people who want to support Kavanaugh, because I went to high school in Virginia, and like there was a lot of people there who would be in support of him, and they kind of, if there's any level of plausible deniability, they'll latch to it. And I think my political science teacher said something really interesting about how like it's normal for Democrats, and I mean I'm independent, but like it's normal for Democrats to not like the Republican nominee. But I think we're so partisan that it's become a thing that we're just willing to ignore anything. I don't want to like look at every single person who supports Kavanaugh as a monster, because I know there's people who I love that like would support Kavanaugh, but it does come from this fierce ignorance, I think, and like selective ignorance, because it's easier to believe in a world where like those men are still upstanding individuals. It's like he can still be a effective judge whilst also have someone with a very dark past, you know? Yeah, I think the FBI should definitely investigate. I think that President Trump has to say that there needs to be an investigation, which I don't think he will. I wish I'd read more, but I don't know what the whole deal is with like the Democrats holding on to it for 20 days. Because the problem is like the Republicans say a lot, and I don't actually know if like that's like a fact, or whether they're, you know, like misconstruing what happened or something like that. But at the same time, if they did that, that's kind of fucked, because what if there was an FBI, if there had been time to be an FBI investigation? But I think, as we've seen, FBI investigations don't just like happen over 20 days. Like that would have definitely postponed things a lot farther. But I don't think there's going to be an FBI investigation as much as I think there should be. And the fact that there was one with Anita Hill, where he was literally just like wanting to talk about like porn with her and being disgusting, but not like physically assaulting and sexually assaulting her. Like the fact that there was an FBI investigation there under Bush, I mean, I feel like that should be a pointer that like there should be one now. But I think Trump is like, once he decides he wants to do something, I don't think anyone's going to convince him otherwise. I think that both sides can be really terrible at talking to one another and trying to find a way to work with one another. It is so hateful in either direction that they kind of egg each other on to get even worse. When they like push each other on like that, it just hurts everyone. Like no one's objectives are, or well, I mean, maybe Republicans are maybe getting what they want, but the whole point of democracy is that there has to be, like, I don't want everyone to be liberal, because then we're not gonna get the solutions and the things we need. So it's good for there to be the conflict, but if there's conflict without any goal of resolution or any goal of a midway, then we're never gonna get anywhere. And I think the, Democrats trying to pull maybe political moves, that's frustrating. Also, Republicans being absolutely blind. This is something that I find very confusing with Republicans, is they are conservative and they say that they are the ones that have morals, but then when it comes to situations where it seems like a pretty black and white morality question, suddenly they're like, oh, boys will be boys. It's like they only care about morals if it's a woman doing a lot of crazy shit when she's younger and sleeping around. But if it was a guy in college or in high school who like whipped out his like dick in the middle of a party, like suddenly it's like, oh, that's not too bad. I'm like, well, you're conservative enough to think that women shouldn't have control of their own bodies, but not conservative enough to think that maybe you shouldn't expose yourself in public or attack a girl or try and have sex with a girl who doesn't want it. I find that confusing. Well, there's the whole Roe v. Wade situation, which is not great. A friend came into my room last night sobbing, and I was trying to comfort her. I was just telling her that all these men that are disgusting, they have been in power all of this time. They've always been in power. The world hasn't gone to absolute shit. I mean, it has in some ways, but we're still here where, like, it's okay. There's still things that are very upsetting, like, for instance, like all the different abortion rights and everything, and that's gotten worse. But men like him have been in power for a long time, and as long as you have people who are willing to fight it, then I'm not worried about Armageddon. I feel like people do kind of act like these moments like it's going to be apocalyptic, and I think we do need to resist it, but I also think we're kidding ourselves if, like, he's an exception, because that was another thing with Me Too, is that these people would come out and, like, everyone was so shocked and be like, oh, I can't believe that, you know, all these actors were actually, like, dicks. I'm like, it's not just actors, it's everything. Like, there are men like him everywhere who are fine in one setting, and then in another setting they can act like a monster because their public view and their private view don't seem to correlate. People say that one doesn't exist. It's either they were never a good judge or they were never a monster. Yeah, it was a weird way to comfort someone who was crying. I'm like, oh, well, you know, he's like, if you think that there's a bunch of guys on, Clarence Thomas has been on the Supreme Court ever since Anita Hill, and I mean, and it's kind of one step forward, two steps back. Like, it is very difficult, but I do think that the more of this stuff happens, the more, like, since Trump, the amount of women that have been getting into politics in reaction to it, and the amount that people are starting to care and show up at the voting booth. If we keep on having these things that happen and people get enough of a reaction, hopefully it'll show up, like, voting wise, and we'll be able to actually elect people who can fight it and elect people who have just a bit more passion to fight it, because I think there's a lot of people, politics kind of takes it out of you because it's a slow slug. Hopefully people get angry and people get frustrated because these problems have always existed, just people haven't really cared enough to address them or to look for them. I can't really think of anything. I just had a coffee and I'm not really thinking that clearly, but I hope there's a couple good sound bites in there.
That's great.
Yeah, I think people are very desperate to find a easy fix to all of their problems. I think that's a really big part of American politics. In Australia, we don't really like our politicians very much, and we've kind of grown pretty comfortable with not liking them. Whereas I feel like in America, people want to completely get behind someone and completely get behind, like, a personality. You saw the same fervor and obsession with Obama or Bernie or Trump. It's kind of like all or nothing. Like, they can't just sort of support someone. They have to, like, forgive all the stuff that they did. I'm like, you can still, like, want someone's, like, just say that you like this policy, but you know, don't like this thing. But I just don't like that people won't acknowledge that through wanting Trump's economic policy, they are actually willing to give up some pretty basic how to act as a person or to be, like, a good person, or I don't know, morality stuff that they cared about before but don't care about now. So